All right, we have a quick reflection card here. It's one of the Deanna Tubb-Sedillo background papers right here with these really great clouds. I've stamped the pine trees from nature set number 41, that one right here. And I've done it in that watercolor style by inking it up and then by applying some different green tones into the trees so that you get that multi-toned impression. And then I use this really small one for that little bit of a pine right there. The lower section has a foundation of this Seaside Cove right in here on silver cardstock. Our figure is from one of the new nature sets, and then I have the tiny rocks down here just in the this little reflection, or the sandy area, shore area. So I might put another image here. I've been using leaves all the time. I'm not sure if I'll do that or not right here. But anyways, this is on a matte, printed on matte paper, so it should color up pretty quick and easy here. And blue, one of the components of blue is green, so I felt perfectly fine stamping green over the top of some of the blue patterning down here. And you can see there's some blues right in here, but that's going to harmonize really well with the colors that I'm going to be coloring here, which will be mostly the yellow tones. I might move into some yellow greens, though, for these large trees. And I'll do that in colored pencil. I'll probably use a little bit of alcohol ink. I'm not sure. I might not need to if I can get this as bright as I want it to be with the colored pencils. Okay, now see where I'm going over the blue with yellow. It looks more like a, kind of a green tone, so you can utilize, color mixtures. It's not physically mixing, but it's optically mixing just by layering over the top of it. And colored pencils, they're not transparent, but they're transparent enough. They're translucent, but if you lay them down pretty lightly, you can see through them. So colors underneath usually kind of show through, unless you're really laying down like a really thick slathering of them. The colors underneath do show through. So even if you go with like a white over the top of that, it's not going to be like a white looking colored pencil mark. All right, so that was, I don't know, like a canary yellow. This one's a little bit more of a orange yellow, or yellow orange. It's more yellow than orange here, but we'll get a little bit more variation. And yeah, it's a little bit more of a warmer temperature when you start moving into the orange tones like that. I just wanted to give it a little bit more character through values. Now these two colors aren't that different from one another in terms of darkness, which is value. But any little bit like that helps, especially if you don't color each different color the same way on your application. So right here, I'm kind of going with this one on the bottom sides of these kind of clusters of, I don't know, whatever, pine needles, leaves, okay? And that's lighter on the top and dark on the bottom, but the lighter color is all throughout it. I just go with the darker colors in the darker areas. And we'll follow that same coloring, whatever pattern, lighting pattern with all the colors that I use. So we won't be doing complete coverage. The most complete coverage that we'll be utilizing will be this lighter tone of yellow. So after I laid down this one, it occurred to me that I can go in a little bit brighter with this one by using a heavier application of it. Which I wasn't sure if I wanted to do, so I just lay it down lightly. And I see how things are developing. And then I might go in with some more like this, okay? So you don't have to use really any of your colors in any media that you use to its maximum whatever, resolution in terms of value and intensity. You can always use like a lighter version of it. Hello, Linda. Just doing a real quick one here. I was going to record it, then I thought, I'll just do it live here. All right, so that is just the colored pencils. I don't know if I'll need to go in there, with some alcohol ink, but why not? Let's give it a try. All right, so I'll use it kind of sparingly and kind of in a scumbling method here. Just kind of a little bit of a different version of that scene that I did the other day, which I really liked. So I thought, let's do another one. Let's do a real quick one. And doing the watercolor impression of the stamp itself, it really put a lot of color just inherently in the impression itself, saving me a little bit of time from having to color, those trees up there. So it's just inherently in there. Hello, Aaron. It's a niche audience, Aaron. It's just scenic stamping in general. But those in the know about it. The people that really matter know about it. The important people. Which would be all of you, of course. All right, so there we go. Hitting it with a little bit of green in there too, like that. Okay, so you get that little greenish tinge in there. Kind of bringing it a little bit, I don't know, closer in relation to the green in there. And you get that richness of tone. And of course, the more rich it looks up here, I tend to think it reads down in this reflection area a little bit better because this silver cardstock, and it's not perfectly mirrored, so you get this little bit of a distortion down here. So kind of the more contrast you have up here, and contrast in light and dark, which would be value, and intensity, bright and dull. I don't know, I tend to think that it reads better down here. And of course, right in here, you get this background over here against this darker form, and this really shows up right in here. Okay, so I'm going to try something. I mean, I've done this before. It's not like, a huge thing, but I'm going to put a little bit more contrast in here underneath my waves. And I'll try to do that with these alcohol pens. I mean, like I said, I've done it before, but I don't do it often enough where I can kind of feel real comfortable about my application of it. And that's the reason being is that this is stamped out in StazOn. And then when you go into StazOn ink with alcohol, you're kind of removing and putting back into solution that alcohol impression right in here, okay? So I'm going to try to not like erase my imagery as I add this alcohol shading into it. So I'll be adding it right underneath these waveforms in here, which don't show up very easily without this additional application. So we'll be adding some white in here too. So, all right, so I'm just doing this really lightly, and I'll try to work fast as opposed to working an area too much and thus putting that alcohol, allowing that alcohol to dissolve and then move it around like that. Bonnie, how are you? All right, let's see. You know what I'll do is there's some darker areas underneath these waves. You can see where I'm adding that alcohol in there. What I'll do is I'll try to add some of this a little bit below, maybe, those waveforms. Now I'm going to be adding white pigment ink in here. So, and I'm going to be spray sealing this because of that white pigment ink in here, okay? So that in there, where it really doesn't match at certain angles like that, okay, it should unify all that when I spray seal, okay? So it really shows up with alcohol on this mirrored surface. Again, at kind of certain angles. Let me see. Let me go a little bit darker than this. There's so much reflection coming off of this, I can't even see where it's being applied in some ways. Okay, this is the one right here. I needed it to be like a 70% gray or something like that. Now I can see the that shadow area underneath the wave a little bit better, or a lot better, I should say. The other one, I don't know. I wasn't quite sure if I was really applying or if I was really removing ink, so I want to make it darker, but it was almost like I was kind of erasing as instead. Coloring silver cardstock, or just the metallics, it's always kind of interesting, in terms of the transfer. I guess the transfer rate, but it's not just that. It's like the transfer ability of media onto the surface. Sometimes you might be doing like pigment inks on here or something like that, and it's really easy, like I said, to do like a removal process. When you think you're applying too sometimes. Okay, see that right in there? Those shadows are right getting developed. That 70% one was really did the trick. Let me see. Let's go back to that one again. Let's see, was it this one? Yeah. Let's add a little bit more of this one. That. And then I'll go back with a lighter one and just kind of blend out kind of the edge of where I've added that in. I'm kind of going back into it and like barely touching it, so it kind of gets into that darker strip. And if there's a real definitive line, if I kind of scumble it around like that, it's adding that alcohol and it's kind of like spreading that out just a touch. And then adding this one in there, because it's putting that darker one back into solution, it's creating kind of a little bit of a fusion of those two colors. So it's closer to this one though. So we get that, okay, and see that those deeper shadows like that. That helps kind of the waves stand out in there much better, okay? So that's working with a darker value for the purpose of the reflection down here, okay? Like that. Now, let's go back. This is the part where I don't know, it seems like it works out every time, but I'm always kind of, whatever, uncertain in terms of the ability. Now, I've done this recent enough, I think, where it's like, okay, yeah, this worked, the last time. I think I did it with running horses in the water or something like that. But it's taking white pigment ink, okay, so the waves right here, okay, let me see if I could show you that. So the waves right here, That's like the white water or something like that, but that's like the crest of the wave right there. So it's like underneath the wave, I'm adding the shadow, but now that top crest, I want to add some of the white pigment ink, okay? But I don't want to slather it on there too much, but I want to get enough of it on these lines right here so that it's going to do two things. It's going to make these waves seem a little bit more dimensional, okay? But I thought on this one especially, because it looks like this up here, so if I add some of that white down on these waves like that, it'll really kind of create a relationship between this shiny, glossy, mirrored type of surface and this really soft pastel created sky by Deanna right there. So, I mean, I think it looks pretty cool as is because you get some of this reflection down here, but it's going to be kind of more of a, incidental. It's just, there's white in some of these areas just because there's so much white up here. But let's put some actual white in there and see if we can't make it look much more dimensional, especially if we carry out some of this white on the tops of some of these waves. It'll break up the reflection here a little bit more. All right, well, let's just give it a try here. So the thing is, you just kind of add it in. You add it in kind of thin layers. Okay, no, this is going to be like a cotton swab is going to be too tight just as it comes. So what I'm doing is I'm loosening it up. So it's, it's how it's wound up like that. So I'm just kind of loosening it up and I'm kind of pulling it out this way a little bit more so it's not so jam compact. And I want to get a softer applicator. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell this, but it's a lot more pliable now. And there's like some air in it, okay? And when you dab it in like this, it might go out of shape, so you can kind of just shape it again a little bit if it's like frayed, okay? Yeah, Aaron, it was something that I came up with. I was thinking about, I was mentioning before in one of these reflection card pieces that I had a moon, okay? And I was thinking, I wanted a moon. I was going to do a card that had like one of those little slits in it, and then I don't know, somehow you have a little bit of a pull tab right here. So it's like connected up and you have this moon going up. I wanted to have it like rising. And I thought, well, I didn't want to have to hassle with that, to tell you the truth. But I thought, okay, I don't know. It occurred to me that if I use the inside of a card like this, and if I have a moon right here, like up in here, as you open the card up, that reflection, see, everything is kind of moving like this, like that interior, you can see that cloud get distorted like that. But there seems to be like movement. See, like down in that water, if you do this against that sky, it creates a little bit of motion. And plus you have this type of thing going on too. So it removed a lot of work for me in creating, this, I don't know, the illusion of movement in there. So less work and kind of gets the job done. I don't know, that sounds pretty good to me. To me too. When I was doing that first one, I wasn't thinking about it, but to me, these look like it's like a diorama in a card or something like that, or a pseudo kind of diorama effect, because it looks really, they look really 3D. I guess they are 3D if you're viewing them at a 90-degree angle, but as I've mentioned before, it really gives like the most, I think, I can't think of an easier way to get a three-dimensional type of look on something with the least amount of actual three-dimensional, traditional three-dimensional types of applications. Like, you know, I mean, it's not hard to do like a pop-up dot or something like that. And I really love like pop-up dots and things like that where people gave dimension to things. But this is like, and I have added some little three-dimensional things in my reflection cards, but you really don't have to, for it to look real three-dimensional. So I don't know, I love it, and it's really kind of, it's like a different dimension. So it's really added in a really fun new way to approach not only scenic stamping, which it's perfect for, but just card making in general. I think it creates kind of a little bit of a narrative too. Most of the times you kind of, you take a card and it's, the most exciting part of it is on the outside, like when you open up the envelope. But this one's more like, I mean, you can put whatever you want right in here. And I haven't really developed my fronts too much, but I tend to keep them a little bit more minimal because it kind of, I think it kind of creates a little bit of that narrative where it's like introduction, body, conclusion type of thing. Like a book or something like that. Okay, so see, that's where I'm going for with that wave. See how it's like varied right here? In terms of the application of that white, there's a little bit more of it here and there. That kind of just happens naturally when I'm doing it, at least. It's not going on like super smooth, but I think it adds to the variation by not having it so smooth. So, okay, so I added it down, and then what you do, I add it in like a similar thickness or layering. And then as I'm doing that, it's going on a little bit thick and thin too. But then what you do is you just kind of emphasize like these areas that are a little bit thicker, and then you add more to it, okay? Now, if you add too much, I mean, you can go back and just wipe this off. It comes right off. It can even dry on here, and you can just wipe it off, okay? But that's where that spray sealant comes into play. You gotta use the acrylic sealant on this to lock this type of pigmenting down on this non-porous surface here. All right, so here's what it's going to get a little bit more tricky, but not too much, is I'm going to add in kind of a lighter touch. And when you don't press down as much and just barely tap it, I mean, the whole thing is kind of flat like that, but if you just use a smaller, lighter touch, where you're just tapping it on the paper just barely, you can get kind of a much narrower application of it like that. And that's where I think it should be pretty effective, maybe. I can't even see it there. I need more right there, okay? But see, a little bit of white on these ones will be nice and effective. Now, look at this one right here, too. I have quite a bit of white on this right here. But this reflection is like, it's like showing right through that. Okay, so that tells me just to go back in and add a thicker, amount. It can handle it. Okay, it's not going to look like too bold in there, or like it's not going to look out of place, I don't think, by adding more. If you just look at this just on its own, it kind of looks strange, right? But this whole bottom portion, it's it's serving whatever the top portion in terms of that reflection. So I'll develop this lower portion as it appears in conjunction with that top portion, and not how it looks like this, okay? I don't know, maybe one day I'm gonna have to do just like a beach scene or something like that, just only on the silver, top portion. It might not be a reflection card, but I'd be curious to see what we can do with that. All right, so see that right there? It's getting much, I don't know, whatever, bolder like that. Okay, and that looks pretty good. Now see this right here? I get a little bit, it's more opaque. Okay, so see this blue. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, here, see this reflection right here? As it goes into it, you can't really see it, so that wave is more set. Okay, it's not being influenced as much by the reflection on it. You know, you don't see all these different blues just showing right in the middle of it like that anymore. Okay, so it's a little bit more opaque. It doesn't stand out too much because there's so much white up here. Okay, but that's why I wanted to use this one too, for this little experiment. The white on silver specifically. I wanted to see what that would look like with all these different kind of wispy, real, you know, soft forms like that. In that case, created with the pastels, and this down here created with pigment ink applied with a nice soft Q-tip, or whatever, cotton swab. All right, so it's looking like that right there. Okay. Let's see, let's add a little bit more right in here, huh, on that wave. If I was just looking at this, I'd think, that's like too much, but we have that such a light background paper up top. Having a little bit more white down here is working out just fine. One of the things about this white too, as it's drying, it's getting a little bit darker. It gets more see-through. So apply a little bit more, just in general. Okay, you see that kind of reflection kind of coming off those, like that. And there's that kind of that nice, kind of three-dimensional look here happening right here, like that. When someone opens it up like this too, it's like really fun, you know. And then they look at it like this. Probably. Someone had told me one time, you know, just in theory, it's like, are people going to know to view the card, you know, like, not like that, but like at that. And I've sent this out to like non-card, you know, card makers and non-card makers, and they get it, you know, right away. I think, you know, they're the ones that, when I send it out to like family or something like that, and I don't tell them anything, those are the ones where I seem, these cards like this, I get more comments about it too. Like, hey, you know, I really like that card that you sent or something like that. Where it's like, you know, you may hear about it or something like that. Or they'll say thanks for the card, but they'll comment on the, you know, whatever, the coolness factor or something like that. You know, if you send them one of these. And they're, you know, they're relatively fast to do, especially if you're starting off with the, you know, some of these pre-printed papers or like a photo print or something like that. Okay, so let's get some spray mist down here. Okay, Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. The nice crashing waves. not huge crashing waves. It's like, I don't know, whatever. It's like up to her, I don't know, shin. But it puts a little bit more kind of motion in it. Hello, military mom. How are you? Yeah, yeah. It really, when it blends together. Now, one of the fun things to do too, this is a reflection card when you use the mirrored cardstock down below like this. But if this was just regular cardstock or, you know, whatever type of paper, I call that a horizon card. And that looks really cool too. You know, you'd be able to make out the you know, the ocean waves, and you can model that a little bit more. It's not going to be reflective, of course, like this. I mean, you could stamp this on a regular piece of paper. Then what you do is you take this stamp and then you stamp it down there as a reflection. You know, so it could be inherently in there. But these ones are a little bit more, oh, I don't know. There's more variation in them, I guess, because of this movement like that and that reflective quality. I think we call it parallax too. When you turn something like this, you know, it's turning from right down here, so that this turns, you get more motion like out here than at the source of that pivot right there, right? You know, that motion out here is like much more extreme. And this area right in here, so this, it looks different like that. Like everything kind of farther out from this point right here, it's changing at a different rate. Like I said, I think it's called parallax or something like that. Okay, so someone mentioned it to me. I learned it in, you know, astronomy class, astronomy 101 or whatever like that in college. I'm amazed I can remember, you know, even vaguely, you know, what that concept was. I wasn't really great with lecture classes. Great in the labs and hands-on and remembering everything, but just straight lecture, you know, not so good. Okay, so I'm adding in a little bit of foreground imagery right in here, just to give a little bit more depth. I really like these horizon cards using the Seaside Cove with the baby sea turtles. Then having a horizon up here, you know, it looks like they're like going out into the moonlight or something like that. All right, so that is like that. So these little extra bushes like that kind of add on to that, you know, three-dimensional feel in there. Like that. All right, little finishing touches here. Here we go. We have our paint pens here. I do need to spray seal that again, but I'll get to that. But let's add a little bit more color and texture to our trees. Okay, so these yellow pens like that, I don't know if I'll use all of these, but we'll go with the lighter yellow. It's a little bit lighter than the tones right in here, so I'm placing that like on the top sides of the you know, the leaf clusters. Yeah, just in general. I mean, if I hit some in the middle or below, it's not, you know, a big deal. Some places I can't really tell. So I'm just kind of adding it in, you know, randomly here and there. I don't know if you can tell, but that gives it a little bit extra dimension. So it makes the trees seem a little bit more kind of full. Let's use white on here. That yellow paint's going to be a little bit wet, so I'm going to add a little bit of white highlights right over the top of it. But the way this acrylic works, I know that that yellow is going to seep into this top layer of a few white dots. If I do put this white dot over the top of that, some of that yellow, it's going to mix, so it won't look quite as contrasted on there as it does right now. Look, as it looks right now. So with something like this, just like that white pigment ink down there, you can use a little bit more than what looks to be ideal, just because when these things dry, again, they move a little bit more towards transparency. All right, let me do something too. Let me add a little bit of highlights on tops of some of this right in here. I should probably do this with a 0.7, not the big fat 3mm pen. But oh well, do you see all that little highlight going on in there? But again, it's like this, it's a little bit more twinkly. And again, it's going to dry and look a little bit darker, so. And then, let's see, I like hitting my tree trunks in here a little bit lighter too. I like doing that all the time, but especially on these reflection cards, if you get a little bit more contrast in a couple of these areas, like see that white trunk there? Now that was just inherently, I didn't add white back into that, but it was just, I didn't color that portion of it, and that's what it looks like on the stamp. So right in here, there's a little trunk right there. And I add this white pen mark in there and just try to bring that out a little bit. I'm adding some in where they don't really exist either, but just because it might show up kind of interesting. See that little right in there, and then when you do that, you're kind of adding a little bit of contrast right in here, and then it shows up a little bit more. It's subtle, but that structure, that tree shows up a little bit more down below like that now by introducing that contrast into it. And then, let's see, what I always do is add some white pigment ink into here just to make it look a little bit more varied in texture. Let's do this right here. Let's add some of it. Okay, this is supposed to be kind of like trees that are farther away than this one right here. So I'm going to add some of this white pigment ink in here. I need to switch my cotton ball area. Usually you can use these cotton balls for like twice for 2 scenes. And then it doesn't accept ink anymore because it's all dried on the ball and it's not absorbent anymore. But you see that right there? Where we're adding it right in here, so those, that island or whatever looks a little bit farther off in the distance. Now see, I think this looks fine as is, but let's just play around with it a little bit. Let's put a little bit of a tone like right back in here, like this. I mean, there wasn't anything specific about this tree. It's just I'm doing it on one of them, as opposed to both. So see this tree right here, doesn't it look a little bit farther back or something, visually? No? Just a touch. It's not supposed to be like, 3 miles away or something like that, but it could be like, it pushes it back optically a little bit more. And then you can do something like that right there. See how that it pushes this tree now is in front of that one a little bit more so than it was before. Or you can bring some of this in, as I like to do it, like the base of it a little bit. So now it's like varied. It's a little bit lighter over here and darker over here. You could have done it the opposite, lighter over here and darker over here, but just kind of playing around with that a little bit. Like that, so you get a little bit more of a varied impression. So it looks like it's sharp and it's soft, it's darker, lighter, closer, farther away. And then, you do that, and all the things that you did up here are mirrored down here, so you get like twice the results for the same amount of effort. Kind of. All right, so that is our, reasonably quick reflection card here. A lot of these little types of things, I'll glue this top part into it. But, some of these things, they're real subtle types of things that you can add into your card. Or you can just leave it as is and it looks pretty good too. But, there's little shadows down here in the water. I'm not quite sure, how much the pigment ink played, but for me, looking for specific things and just kind of enjoying the process of doing that, I think it's worth the time for me. But if I was to do like mass produce these, I'm sending out 10 of these to, some people for the holidays or something like that, or whatever type of occasion, maybe I remove, 2 or 3 of the processes down here. I would probably not do maybe the pigment ink on this lower portion. Up here, it took like 1 minute or something like that, so that would be really fast to do, but you can really kind of crank these ones out sometimes. And again, kind of keeping this area up top here a little bit more simple. It tends to work better in reflection cards because you have some decent contrasts between the background and your imagery, and that reads better down in this area. Or if you have imagery down here, you don't want to complicate it up here too much because then you can't see the little subject matters, animals, people, and that type of thing in that lower portion as much. So I don't know. If I don't do these cards, I've mentioned them before, sometimes I kind of forget about that. Or if I have like my character right here, or a moose or a horse in the water or something like that, and if I put something up here, it's reflecting down in there. So I got to remember just to keep things, really simple a lot of times. And yeah, like I said, it makes for a pretty quick type of card application. So anyway, thanks for checking out the card. Let's get this on. This looks nasty here. Thanks for checking out this little impromptu, whatever, quick card scene. Hope you like it. Big thanks goes out to Deanna Tubb-Sedillo again for providing me with the that background paper. Those are really, really fun to work with. And I love the how you can integrate them into different types of whatever scenarios, so I was going to do something with this one, and whatever I do, this could be, I usually don't go vertical reflection cards like that, but this one would really pair really well with like some kind of golden, type of reflection. The thing about this, though, it goes up way up top, though, and I don't like these edges like this. See, in a reflection card, it creates these shards on the side. Now, if I put like a tall pine on both sides, but look how beautiful that this kind of sepia or brownish, maybe more like walnut color. Look how well it pairs with this golden color, right down here. I'm not gonna do this, but you can just see the colors and how rich they are like that. And you this golden light reflecting back up here too, so it's like you're bathing this in some ways with a little bit of gold reflective light, so it makes it look even richer. It would have to be like this one, though. Like that. Anyway, I'll figure it out. Like I said, I just want to use this one, but I don't know. I'll figure out a good composition for that. All right, have a great rest of evening or day if you're, I don't know, somewhere in a other part of the world, or if you're watching this on replay. All right, hope to see you guys in the next live. Thanks for joining in.